Hello everyone and welcome to Initial Judgment, where we are going to be taking a look and a bit of a test run of 3-on-3 for our new character Lucio. And Lucio today is joined by Bartz and Helena because having spent the last few days checking out some videos from other players, I have seen this team focused on a bunch, and I wanted to make some commentary about it, but to do that, I kind of need to be able to show this party in action. As well, we're going to be fighting the Lightning group, which, for the most part, this is exactly what you would see in Arena, minus maybe some vision cards and Xmas Wrath. But hey, we only have so many characters here. So basically, Thunder Arena 3-on-3 versus this light team. And some keynotes. This is not a particularly defensive build for Lucio. Lucio, as you can see, speed is a little bit low. His HP is hovering around 10,000, 1,600 attack. I kind of pushed more for attack this time to see how it would do against this team. He still is sporting a fair amount of resistances as well as elemental resistances thanks to his build, so that's pretty nice. Taking a look at his compadres, you can see that Helena is of course very single target resistance, as well as just rolling down here. You can see elemental resistance is there for her. And Bart's, his stats as well, his attack is actually very comparable, and his resistance is a little bit overall lower, which basically kind of is what you would expect to see from this character. Bartz can be a damage pusher, but he is becoming more and more fragile as characters are getting more and more durable. So let's head in with this group, test it out, and see how it is. And we'll make some initial comments and judgments, as well as giving a rating to what I think about Lucio. All right, so this setup a little bit awkward as some of our characters are a little far away. We're going to have to do some moving, but starting off, we'll get some abilities firing off. We want to make sure that Lightning gets hers as well. Next up, we'll move our light party just over here. Get Bart's up with his guts. Sure, why not? That seems pretty good. Helena over here. Cast all of hers. And now we're getting into Lucio. And as you can see, Lucio a little bit slow here because of the way these setups are, but not too terribly bad. So the big thing that I think we want to do, first of all, is cast his ability that physical distance based resistance and magical resistance, as well as increasing elemental resistance of 15% and giving himself an attack boost. So that one is this 23 ability. We'll get that going. Pass on his turn. Bring over Alaya. We want to make sure that she is getting her barriers to see how damage goes. The enemies are going to get a bunch of turns. Unfortunately, that is just part of the maps that we always choose, but not a terribly big deal, although Bart's is going to take a bit of pain. Right, we move over our guy over here, and I do believe been a little bit since I haven't been using him too terribly much lately, so you'll have to give me, but cast this ability. Get him ready. And make sure we're casting lightnings, which gives her her barrier. And we should be generally set up here. And just for sakes, you know what, Bart's, just head on over here. Preferably don't kill yourself in the process, but you just get rid of some of these guys. Thank you. Gonna pass on some of these. And and then bring Lucio over. Unfortunately, still just the way this map is set up, not particularly great for getting that in, but we can. As you can see, even with a single cast of one of his abilities, his limit burst is not ready to go yet. Now, normally we'll get a couple more casts before this happens, but it is a general problem, as well as Lucio does have pretty short range on most of his abilities. Not all of them, but quite a few. And as you can see, he does have quite a few selectors. This one, his basic ability is very, very short range, which can be a little bit of a problem when talking about the team that we're with right now. But let's head back up. We're going to cast another one of his abilities, if I can figure out which one we really want to test. Not that, probably. That is his Light and Darkness, his Darkness Killer, which would be nice if we were against a Darkness-based party, but since we aren't, we're not going to be casting that. This is the one that we do really want to cast, so we'll just cast it right away. And now we're going to stop and take a little bit of a peek, see how his stats have grown. So he's gone up to 1800 attack, about 51 single target attack resistance, 33 AoE resistance. And now we can finally start just wailing on him a little bit in the scene. So first off, Limit Burst of Asterisk, as you can see, very powerful usually, down to about 3400 attack, which is not too terribly much on Lucio. This is a good amount of resistance and actually a fair amount of mitigation against his poison, which is quite nice. So let's just bring our character over a little bit more. I guess we should be helping out Lucio a little bit here, but even whether we're looking at AoE attacks, single target attacks, resistance breakers, and all kinds of stuff, Lucio is pretty damage resilient against a bunch of stuff. It's just more when a series of attacks start hitting him, that's when it starts getting a little bit more danger. So let's bring also over our Thunder Fist lady so she can start wailing, testing out how much she can do. This one, considerably more damage than what Asterius is pushing. But again, taking a look here, strike resistance is one of his less prepared damage types. But most of Bridal Elia's attacks are not that damage dealing, actually. For a character that is kind of known for just being a pretty big powerhouse on the JP side, this is a considerable amount of damage mitigation against her attack. So that's pretty good. We'll just pause for a sec. Skip a bit. Bring over parts. Testing his barrier ability. Enjoying the nice, peaceful, relaxing Mega Man music while we wait for our next turn. Right. Just kind of keep casting our buffs, and let's just show, again, this is not a super well-built party for Helena. Helena is actually a little bit lower for her damage output, because most of the VCs are trying to push a little bit more damage with our physical units rather than our magical units this time. And yeah, you can see just doing even a little bit, just how much some of her AoEs are doing against this Thunder Party. And as we pass 1,000 turns, all right, so first off, let's take a look at this Limit Burst. Because the Limit Burst is a major consideration for running this character. You can select 3 targets, which means that you're getting essentially an AoE without it necessarily being an AoE. You're getting rid of Protect, you're decreasing CT, and you're dealing a pretty good amount of damage while also getting a couple of hits off. Here, as you can see, we're dealing so much. Characters with barriers and extra protection, a little bit better against this. If they were running Protect, they're getting that Protect removed, and it is being more damage efficient. As you can see, this character is much more strong against single target attacks. which maybe you already know, but just in case. So let's jump back in here and choose one of Lucio's other abilities, which this one is the Barrier Breaker. And as you can see, it is a pretty dang massive amount of damage. It would be even more so with some better equipment, a little bit different of equipment, but you can see it really does help get through some of these much more defensive, offensive brawler type characters who really do rely on barriers. And we just go one more. We'll check out this one. Single target resistance is a little bit more of a problem for Lucio, just because a lot of his attacks are, well, actually most of his attacks available to him are single target. Actually, I'm starting to just question. I thought there was one, or at least a couple. There's his job level 25 ability, this one right here. But as you can see, not incredibly impressive for AoE. He kind of depends more on doing single target attacks to his opponents. So now let's just turn on auto while we talk about our judgment for this character. Overall, Lucio is not a bad character by any stretch of the imagination. Those are supposed to be butterflies, but apparently we're having some issues with the animation there. Curious. Lucio's not a bad character by any stretch, as I was saying. He has a lot of select a target abilities, which are very, very flexible. His range on his abilities are not super great, and to what I have seen of this character in action in arena and duel style matches, this is the team that I've seen run quite a bit, and I think its performance is a little bit shaky. Bart's, for instance, with his secondary hit, is kind of dependent on another unit being able to strike from a distance, which Lucio can't really do. And what's more, Bart's is not incredibly durable, and Lucio kind of starts being considerably less durable once multiple enemies are hitting him in quick succession, where he just kind of dies because he doesn't really have anything to keep him alive in the sense of like the backup stuff that some characters have. Like you look at Helena or some characters who have barriers, but also then have re-raise or like can survive a fatal hit. That in combination is generally stronger. And what Lucio is kind of looking at is elemental and single target or AoE resistance to essentially keep him alive, which kind of depends on more and more vision cards. But the bottom line, when talking about this party specifically with Bart's, Helena, and Lucio, I'm really unconvinced that this is his optimal setting, and even that the light element is good enough to support him. He has enough in his kit to be a good, if not a great unit, because he can dispel so many things on targets. He can get rid of auto revive. He can get rid of ignore fatal hits. He can pump up a lot of stuff. He can remove damage buffs from others. Like he can change his damage type to be flexible. Like there's a lot of reasons why Lucio and his kit are so good and desirable. It just doesn't quite feel like the support is there, because Helena isn't going to be one to give him the kind of thing that he's needed. And that leads to a question of where exactly he would be good. Because you think, well, maybe a slashing based party. Maybe he needs someone like A2 or Thunder Astrius or other really strong slashers to really work off him. And there is some precedent out there, because some BCs do support this pretty well between this sword group that he's in, both great swords. But at this point, there isn't enough evidence to support that any of these parties are particularly good enough. Like, Lucio has a ton of stuff that I want from any unit. He has a great design, he has great art style. Everything here is stuff that I really, really like. but he feels, and this is my rating for him, of being just too risky right now to overly recommend. Globalers with light are kind of doing the evasion thing from my understanding, because Addison Ray, despite how you feel about the unit, has brought something to the light element that has kind of made an identity for it. And this feels just like the previous year, where Wingstern was the start of an identity, but 2023 was a very rough year for Light. Light didn't get a ton of support, and I don't feel overly confident saying, snap, yeah, this is 100% a meta-defining unit. I think that this unit is risky to me. That is the key word, risky, because if we just go through another year with no support for the light element and Slash just being really competitive, but also just one of the damage type that most other units are prepared to deal with, or mostly prepared to deal with, Lucio will kind of suffer for it. So at the end of the day, Lucio is definitely a top tier unit, but there's something that is just not there in the light element, and something that I just haven't found yet in the slashing type damage type to really push him all the way there. But anyway, that's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. See you next time.